120 bir. 121.
Доброе утро, уважаемые участники. Good morning, dear participants. We resume our workshop, the third day, the final day of the workshop. Let me again thank, on behalf of all the participants, the Ministry for the nice reception, the super beautiful place. So thanks a lot. Hope everyone enjoyed it. And as we said yesterday, we start earlier today to be able to finish by lunchtime, so that you have time to rest, to enjoy the city, and to do shopping. So I hand the floor to my colleague Martin Scheiper to continue with the presentation number 16. Please.
Thank you very much, Farid, and good morning, everybody. And me as well, I would like to join Farid in thanking the host for the wonderful dinners that we've had so far. Yesterday, Ken was magnificent. Very good dancing as well from everybody. Almost everybody, I admit it. So, welcome back to the last day. Maybe can somebody there put my presentation at the page where it says 889? Because if I have to click. Otherwise I click 9. So we started yesterday talking about how to conduct a survey, that you have to do a careful planning. Coordination is important among the various stakeholders. And then I started discussing the various indicators that we have in our manual that we ask the countries to collect. No, further down, there, then we go number by number. Yes, exactly now to number 9. So you can see the indicators that we've discussed already. No. Back, number 9. Yes, thank you. So we already have seen 8 of the indicators in the manual, and we will continue now with number 9, the proportion of individuals using the internet by type of activity. So it's the same question as before. In the survey, you will ask the question, in the last 3 months, did you use the internet? And then if the person says yes, then the next question is, where did you access the internet, which is 888, location. And then the next question would be, so what did you do? Which activities did you undertake? And yesterday already there was a comment that the list of activities is far too long. I agree with that. At the last EGH meeting, we tried already to clean it up, but we haven't removed many activities. What we have done, though, is group them together in categories so that it becomes a little bit easier and quicker as well for respondents to answer. So the question is, in the category access to information, did you look for information about goods or services? Did you seek health-related information? Did you get information from general government organizations? And a few more that you can all find in the manual, because I couldn't fit all 20-something activities on one slide. Then there is a category communication and collaboration, like using Skype or VoIP for making phone calls. A category on e-commerce. So did you buy something online? Did you sell something online? Learning. Did you use the internet for learning, e-learning? The next one is professional life. So did you use LinkedIn, for example, or similar type of network? Did you look for a job online? Is one of them as well. Digital content consumption. So use of social media, looking at YouTube, looking at listening to the radio online, watching television online. And digital content creation. if you're maintaining a blog, for example. So those are the main categories. Now, the remark yesterday was quite right that it's a long list, because that's always how it is. You have a few answers, and those are very interesting, and then you think of a few more, and they get added, and you think of other ones, and they get added, and before you know it, the list is very long. You can also make the selection. You can also make the selection what is relevant for you. And then if you cannot respond to all activities that are on the ITU form, that is okay. You don't have to do what we tell you to do. It's nice, of course, because then we can compare between all countries, but in the end, it is up to you. Indicator number 10 is the proportion of individuals using a mobile cellular phone. So we have a number of indicators dealing with mobile phones. We have access to a phone, which is purely access-based. Then we have using a mobile phone, which is this one, and later on we see a relatively new one, which is owning a mobile phone, which is different. So there's different types of dealing with mobile phones, because they're so important for our daily life and everybody's daily life, and for the development of the ICT sector, that we want to have all the relevant information. Then the next one, it's maybe is the proportion of households with internet by type of service. Now, what's happening, what you see is that all the indicators that jump a little bit between household and individuals. This is not the way you should structure your survey. We will see that later. In your survey, you group all the access parts together, you go through them, and then once you've concluded that, then you jump to the usage part where you target individuals. So in a survey, you shouldn't jump from one to the other. But because this indicator was defined later, it has a higher number. That's the only reason why it has a different number. So this indicator is basically, it's quite technical, and it can be difficult for people to answer, because people are not always aware of the exact technical details that they're using. But the question is, by what type of service did you use it? And then it's like, did you use a fixed network, narrowband or broadband, or a terrestrial fixed wireless broadband network, satellite broadband network, or did you use a mobile broadband network via handset, or a mobile broadband network via a card? So here it is really helpful to have interviewers who can actually help respondents in giving the right answer. Indicator 12 is the proportion of individuals using the internet by frequency. So we're back at the individual level. The question is, did you use the internet? Yes. If you use the internet, how often did you use the internet? At least once a day, at least once a week, but not every day, or less than once a week. Those are the options that we are asking countries to report to us. And then we have a question, an indicator on television. So the proportion of households, so again this is an access one for households, not for individuals. The proportion of households with access to multi-channel television at home, and what type of multi-channel television. Is it through cable? Is it direct to the home? Is it IPTV? Or is it digital terrestrial TV? This as well can be a complicated question, because it's asking about technology, and people not always know what kind of technology they have in the house. Especially if the question goes to the member of the household who is not responsible for, let's say, arranging all the access part in the house. Question 14 is a barrier question, an household question. It is asking the respondent in the household why that household did not have internet access, if they didn't have internet access, of course. And then there's a number of responses, which is do not need the internet, do not know how to use it, cost too high, privacy concerns, it's not available, cultural reasons, such as exposure to harmful content, don't know what it is, not allowed to use the internet, lack of local content, or other reasons. Then we have the skills indicator. This is an important indicator because it's part of the IDI. It's also an important indicator because skills are often mentioned as one of the main barrier to an effective use of internet, and it's people with the right skills can develop better, can grow better, contribute more to productivity. So it's not important because it's in the IDI, it's in the IDI because it's important. And the problem with the skills indicator used to be that it was a question asking about 9 activities which were based on a computer. So this is really the old way of accessing the internet, using a computer and a modem or a broadband connection at home, using the computer, accessing the internet, and then see what can you do with the computer. Not necessarily internet activities, but at least that was the thinking behind it. Of course, there has been a lot of developments, and nowadays many people use many types of devices, not only the computer. So it was time to revise this question and make it more independent of the device used. So this already happened at the European level, and we copied some of that. We're using a framework for skills, which is the digital competence framework from the European Union. And based on that framework, there's a number of, let's say, broad categories, and these categories can be translated in activities that match those broad skills categories. So after the EGH session last year, the question has been revised, and the categories now, the answering categories are activities to measure. So the question is, in the last 3 months, which of the following activities did you conduct? So you have to tick all that apply. So using copy and paste tools to duplicate or move data, information and content in digital environments. So we see now that it's not anymore about using a computer, it's in a digital environment, within a document, between devices, on the cloud. So if you're using Google Docs on your phone and you have to use some copy and paste, that counts. It doesn't have to be a computer. Sending messages is the second category with attached files, email, messaging services, SMS. So it can be a simple SMS with an attached file, so an MMS, for example, a multimedia file. Using WhatsApp with a picture attached to it counts as well. So again, we are away now from using a computer. The third one is using basic arithmetic formula in a spreadsheet, which speaks for itself. The next one is connecting and installing new devices through wired or wireless technology. So connecting a camera or a printer or a modem, for example. The next one is finding, downloading, installing and configuring software and apps. So again, away from installing software on a computer, it's also installing an app on your phone or on your tablet. The next category is creating electronic presentations with presentation software, including text, images, sound, video or charts. I mean, often you will use a computer for this, but you don't have to. It's making a PowerPoint presentation, for example. The next category is transferring files or applications between devices, including via cloud storage. So for this workshop, for example, I uploaded my presentations onto a Google Drive, and what they done here is they downloaded it from the Google Drive, and this is what you see on the screen. So I can tick this category, and here they can tick the category as well. So we're all happy. Then a new one that was added, because all the previous ones, they were there already, but they were computer-based before, and now they are more, they're broader. Then what we found in skills, there was also a chapter on skills in MASR that went much deeper into the types of skills that are needed for participating in the information society. And it's also about soft skills that are very difficult to measure. But it's also about security and privacy. Those are very important skills as well. So we added setting up effective security measures, such as strong passwords, login attempt notification to protect devices and online accounts. And the next category is changing privacy settings on your device, account or app to limit the sharing of personal data and information. And the last category is programming or coding in digital environments. So it can be using computer software, but it can also be app development, and it doesn't have to be using a computer. This revision of the skills question was done by a subgroup with many participants, and it was led by Statistics Canada. So some of the questions you see here are inspired by what Statistics Canada is using in their questionnaire. So we're not just making it up, we're also using actual country experience. So I spend a little bit more time on this one because it's an important indicator for many reasons, including the fact that it's an IDI indicator and an SCG indicator. The current skills indicator is 9 computer-based activities, and we're still collecting that one currently this year. We will make this page available for all users on the online forum. It will also go into the revised manual, and we will bring that out in the next month or so. And then I think as of next year, we will start to collect this question instead of the current question. So we'll make a mapping from the current question to the new question, so that at least we will maintain some kind of consistency over time, but there will always be a small break in series. 8816 is household expenditure on ICT. This is always difficult because as soon as money gets involved, it's always very difficult to get the right information. We are asking for the percentage of total household expenditure that is expended on ICT goods and services as follows: telephone and telefax equipment, telephone and telefax services, equipment for the reception, recording and reproduction of sound and picture, such as television sets, etc. Information processing equipment, computers, tablets, those kind of things, phones. Repair of all of this. Now this is very difficult already to know how much you spend, to remember how much you spent, and then have to put it in context of your overall expenditure. It's very tough. I'm not sure how good the information is that we have on this indicator, and how many countries actually submit this information. And that's actually something that I will look up when I'm back home. Individuals, number 17, individuals using the internet by type of portable device and network used to access the internet. So this is purely about portable mobile access. So either using a mobile phone, using a tablet, using a laptop, or using another portable device such as games consoles or an e-book reader. And then also often distinguish between using your data plan or using the Wi-Fi. Then number 18, so the high number already shows that it's a relatively new indicator. It was first collected in 2015 only, after it was agreed by ETH in 2014, which is the proportion of individuals who own a mobile phone. Now, you are considered to own a mobile phone if you have a mobile phone with at least one active SIM card for personal use. So it doesn't necessarily have to be yours. If you get a phone from your employer that you can use also for personal purposes, you're considered to own a mobile phone, even if your employer pays for it. Also, it's not registered under your name. which is a very frequent case. For example, I subscribe to like 4 mobile phones, but I'm using only one. My wife uses one and 2 of my children use one, but all 4 of us are considered to own a mobile phone. Because they all have the use of it, they have the phone, they have the SIM card, so for all means and purposes, it's their mobile phone. And the last one is, we had the barrier question already to households. Why don't you have internet access in the household? Now the question to individuals, because everything is getting more and more personal with personal devices. I mean, in the past, people would access the internet at home only or mainly, and if the home didn't have internet access, then the individual couldn't access the internet. But since it's become much more personal, there's now also the question about why people do not use the internet, and the reasons are the same, the barriers are the same as for the households. Do not know, do not need it, do not know how to use it, cost too high, privacy, security, cultural reasons, not available, not allowed to, etc. So those are the 19 indicators. We already discussed a little bit on the age scope before. We recommend to cover as much of your population as you can. So we do not recommend an age cutoff anymore. Even if European countries still, many of them use 15 or 16 to 74. We think it's very important to also cover the younger population, and it also makes it easier to monitor progress over time. And you can look at age cohorts over time, how they move on. So we recommend to cover as much as you can. The reference period, this I mentioned this before. It used to be 12 months, or it used to be 12 months for some and 3 months for other. We've simplified this by always asking about the last 3 months. For some indicators, you can argue it's better to have a longer time period. For example, for e-commerce, maybe you do a lot of e-commerce around Christmas or around another important event, and not during the rest of the year. So there are seasonal variations, or there may be differences in patterns of how you conduct yourself online between the summer when a lot of people are on holiday or not. But this is the easy one also, because if you use 12 months, you get the recall issue in the sense that people will just not remember. Sometimes you think something happened like 9 months or 10 months ago, and turned out it was actually 2 years ago. This is very common for everybody, and recalling something that happened in the last 3 months is a lot easier. So when you do a survey, we of course are interested in information on all those indicators that I just mentioned, but we also want to know the breakdown of all of these data by socio-demographic groups. It's important to policymakers to see if there's a difference in the take-up between men and women, between age groups, between rural and urban. So you can see how the digital divide is within your country, and we can see how it is between the various countries. You can see if there are difference between level of education in how people use ICTs, if it's a lack of skills, confidence, low income, gender. So you can really drill deep into specific usage patterns and tease out where there are the differences and why there are those differences, because then maybe you can address them. And that's of course important for policymakers who want an all-inclusive information society. So on the individual level, we recommend to ask in the questionnaire about the sex of the respondent. That is very important for all indicators. Age, and the age groups that we recommend are under 5, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 24, 25 to 34, etc., etc., etc. Then by 10-year age bands. Then for international reporting, we group it together between under 15, 15 to 24, 25 to 74, and 75 and over. So we ask you to group together everything from 25 to 74. But at the national level, it's probably important as well to have the finer details. Education level, we use the ISCAT classification for that, the International Standard Classification of Education, distinguishing between primary, lower secondary, upper secondary, tertiary, and post-tertiary. By labor force, so you can see if there's a difference in between ICT use between employees, self-employed, unemployed, and people outside the labor force. Disability, this is relatively new and this is very complicated. So I would say this is optional and it's so far not very successful, but there is a push to include this in your surveys as well. Because of course this can be an important barrier to people because they have a health problem. And the health problem can be eye problems, so problems seeing even wearing glasses, hearing problems, mobility problems, if you have difficulty walking or climbing stairs, cognitive problems such as do you have difficulty remembering or concentrating, do you have difficulty with self-care, have you difficulties taking care of yourself, or do you have a communication problem? So those can all be very important barriers for people to use the internet. So if you ask those in your survey if people have any of those disability problems, you can also find out if that affects the uptake of ICTs, and of course that is important for policymakers to try to address it. There are other classifications that you can add, but it becomes more and more optional, let's say, such as the level of literacy, ethnicity, languages spoken, language skills, or you can even use the skills indicator to see if there are differences in uptake between people with lower level of skills and higher level of skills. So for households, we recommend, and that's what we ask in our questionnaires as well, to ask questions about the household composition. So does the household have children or not? And children are children under 15. The size of the household, so how many household members are there? The geographical distribution, such as urban, rural. Now the problem, as we discussed yesterday already, is that there's no international definition of urban, rural, so you should use your own. And we would appreciate also receiving the information about what you consider in your country urban and rural. In some of the low developed countries, electricity can be an important stumbling block to use ICTs or to have access to ICTs. So if that's an issue in your country, you can ask the question if the household has electricity. I think that for the countries around this table, this is probably not an issue. And household income, where you can have income brackets. And then it becomes really interesting once you have all those data to then cross-classify. So not only breaking down, processing your data and making tables of, for example, all data by sex, that is very important, and data by age, that's very important, but also the data by sex and age. So you can see the difference between young men and young women, old men, old women, etc. Also looking at household composition by rural-urban, rural-urban by sex, age by sex, educational attainment by sex, status in the labor force by sex, and occupation by sex. If you want to do this, and some of that we ask in our questionnaires, it also means that your survey has to be detailed enough that you can actually produce those data with the required level of confidentiality. So this is an example of our long questionnaire about how we ask the data. So you have the a page, a sheet for household questions, and then we ask it for all households, and then we ask it for urban, rural, and then we ask it for household composition with children and without children, and further broken down by urban and rural. And what will not surprise you is that the deeper we go into the questionnaire, the less responses we get from countries. But that is understandable. So let me pause here for a second and see if there are any questions. Yes, please.
Good morning. Two questions. One regarding the ICT skills question. I think it is now being updated. When is it going to be, announced or published or sent to the countries, so we can, start, including and inserting in our, upcoming surveys. The second question is related to the HH18. Which is the individuals owning a mobile phone. You've mentioned something regarding that it shouldn't be necessarily to be under his own name. Now my question for children, if they don't own the device, but they can use their families, devices, is that considered under this, owning this mobile phone?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if they use your phone to make a phone call every now and then, that's not really owning. In my case, my children have their own phone. Okay. Even if I paid for it and I'm paying for the service, you know how children are. Daddy pays for everything, but it's their phone. So it really has to be their personal device. On the skills question. I've worked it out. I'm looking for some internal comments to make sure that I didn't forget something or that it's all clear. Once we've done the internal review, we will post it on the ETH forum. And it's becoming a priority, so I will make sure that happens hopefully before the end of the month. And then you have time to start using it. Yes, please.
Just a comment regarding the individuals using the internet. It was a comment raised by Saudi Arabia yesterday about the age and how we can harmonize it across the countries in terms that this indicator is used in the IDI, and it might cause some problems regarding the ranking. So why not in the IDI to use the individual using the internet, for example, and between brackets you can put 10 years plus for the harmonization, and then in the household survey, for the purpose of having a lot of disaggregation of data, we can collect the data. Each country can do whatever it likes. So in terms of harmonizing, when we are ranking countries, and then the warehouse of the data itself.
Yeah, one option would be, but 10 and plus will not work, because some countries are having a higher cutoff point. So if you really want to fully harmonize it, you should probably go back to 15 to 74.
Okay.
But that requires also a change in our data collection, because what we ask for in the short questionnaire is just the total. So then we have to ask the total and the breakdown by age already, so that it will require an age. I don't know if this has been discussed before.
Yeah, I don't know either, but it's each country, it does the age disaggregation by default. I guess so. So only in the IDI you need to choose a category to harmonize between countries, and this will solve the problem of I think.
Yeah,
So.
I think that's a good suggestion. I'm not sure how we can take that forward because at the moment it's very unclear how we can revise the IDI. In Resolution 131 it says only every 4 years. Although I understand the sentiment behind that, it also makes it difficult to do something in between if there's the need to do something. It's also not clear who gets to decide, if it's the countries or ITU. Originally it was ITU in consultation with member states, but in the last revision it seemed to have gone into the member states decide. I have expressed already my concerns about that. Then you end up with political compromises instead of statistical compromises. And we're currently looking at some of the issues around the IDI. This is not directly part of that, but I think we can add it and we can effectively see if this is something that we can take forward. And I'm not sure how we're going to take things forward, but we can include it. I will make a note of that. I've been thinking about this myself as well. It does complicate a little bit also your life, every country's life, that they have to and can look deeper into the data when they submit the data. It does make for a more harmonized idea. That I agree. So,
just to add here, Martin, this suggestion has nothing to do with changing the IDI. It is just harmonizing. I mean the results of the IDI.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't think you should be too worried about it. I was thinking about it this morning as well. Let's say an extreme case that it will make, and it will not make, an 8% difference. So if you take only 50 to 74, you would have 88% of your population. But if you use whatever you use, let's say 10 until everybody, and it goes down to 80%. I don't think it will. I don't think it will make that much of a difference. It means that you lose 8%, but 8 out of 100 is the same as 0.8 out of 10, because the IDI is on a scale of 10. And since that indicator counts for 1/5 of 40%, so it counts for 8% of the total score, you lose 0.06 on your score, and it's probably less. So you lose 0.05 on your score. So that is a rather small difference. It may make a difference of 1 or 2 places in the ranking, maybe. Also depending on what the countries around you have as AIDS cutoff. But really the difference in the ranking is not that extreme, I would say.
Just one last comment on this to shed the light on, yes, it's becoming, I guess, a political problem of the ranking in each country. It's really worried about its ranking. And some countries, because of the difference in the age that is applied in each country, some countries might have the data, but they might be discouraged to report the data, for example, under the age of, okay? So if you will do, for example, if you do the harmonization, countries will be encouraged to report accurately with regards to household survey, and then it will be different in the ranking because they might, because of political reasons, they might be discouraged.
But as a counter argument to that, if we do that, they may be encouraged to only cover that population in their survey, which we think is a mistake. So they say, oh, for the IDI we only need 15 to 74, so we only cover 15 to 74, and that would be a real pity, because I think it's more important to do something good for your policymakers than to influence your ranking in the IDI.
Excuse me?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question here. In regards to expenditure of ICT expenditure by household, Can we collect such data from our survey, or we should collect it through dedicated income and expenditure surveys done by NSO?
No, that's a very good point. It is probably better even to get it from the expenditure survey.
Yeah.
Because that is a survey that is already targeted towards expenditure. So people are in the right mindset. They maybe are looking at their bank account, and they're getting all their financial information together to respond to the survey. So they're in the right mind frame. The categories that are there, they are standard categories that are quite likely to be included already in such a survey. So actually, thank you for the comment. That's a much better idea. So not to have it in the ICT survey, but to get it from another survey. It's something I briefly mentioned yesterday already, that you have to see if some of the information may be available elsewhere. This is an excellent example of information that may be available elsewhere. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is just a general question. I mean, we're always talking about ICT access and use. I don't know what is the rationale behind having the TV and radio questions inside that ICT questionnaire.
It's historical.
I understand the IPTV, okay, and that is already covered in even the supply side, the bundled services. But for the cable TV, antenna, and satellite, these kind of things.
I tend to agree with you. I mean, ICTs, the whole ICT measurement started at the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, when there was a little bit of internet, but not a lot of it. And ICTs were information and communication technologies, and it was really about talking and listening and watching. So at that point in time, radio and TV were still very important. They are still important, of course, but they become so multiple, and the attention really has shifted towards the internet and the various things. So they're there still, for historical reasons, they're still there. If you want to, let's say, reduce your survey, because survey burden is always an issue, and if you want to focus more on some questions and you have to cut some questions, I would say cut them. Okay. So it's another good point. Thank you. Okay, so where are we? We are at 9:53. I have still some time to go through this. Survey design, very important that you want to get the cooperation from your respondents. You have to make sure that you ask the questions in the right way, in an easy way, that is easy to understand and easy to complete, that is easy to read, etc. The data sources, you can use household ICT data collected via a survey of households, including population censuses and mail surveys, and no examples are known where this is not the case, although we recently had some discussions about alternative ways of finding, at least for the usage part, finding your respondents. But for the household access part, you need to go to households. That is quite clear. Administrative data are very useful data, supply side data, but the number of internet subscriptions is not the number of internet users, is not the number of households with internet access. You can use it to calibrate your data to see if they make sense, but they are different indicators that show something else. So we briefly touched it already upon it, whether to do a standalone survey or if you have to add some questions to an already existing survey. Now, what we saw from the expenditure one, that should actually be part of another survey and not, preferably not part of an ICT survey. For the household part, for the household access part, you can add some questions to existing household surveys. There are general purpose household surveys in many countries. And there often there's nowadays also the question about at least internet access and sometimes computer access as well. So for that you don't always need a specific standalone IST survey. But for all the usage questions, you need a standalone survey. Unless there are some individual questionnaires, individual surveys that are going out where you can add a module on ICT. But if that happens, then you have to reduce your number of questions because you cannot add all the ICT questions to an already existing questionnaire that already is asking a lot of questions about other things. So then you have to reduce your set of questions to really the core. So the ideal situation is if you can do a standalone survey. Well, this is all what I just said, I think, basically. So I will skip this and leave it to you to read it. Now, questionnaire design is very important. If a questionnaire is poorly designed, I know how I am. If I have to fill in something and it doesn't work, or I cannot read it, or I do not understand it, then very quickly you're okay, I give up. These people are not serious. I'm not going to respond to this. You also have to make sure that it's very clear to avoid people making mistakes just because they didn't understand the question or they couldn't find the correct box to tick. Let's say that they tick the box for the wrong question because it's so poorly designed that you cannot see it. This happened in presidential elections in the United States not too long ago. So that should always be avoided, because otherwise you end up with the wrong president. It really happened. Yeah. Really happened. It's incredible. So, ideally, questionnaires should be administered by interviewers. Of course, we talked about this yesterday already. For cost efficiency reasons, you can do a telephone survey, but your response rate will be lower and the quality of the response may suffer as well. If you have the budget available to use interviewers, by all means do use interviewers, because it really improves your response rate and the quality of your responses. General principle of questionnaire design. This is also standard. Questionnaires should be as short as possible. The structure should maintain the respondent's motivation and interest. It has to be a logical flow with appropriate skips and enable grouping of questions for a particular respondent. So, as I said, you start with the household questions. And you ask the question, did this household have access to the internet? If the answer is no, then don't ask them what kind of connection speed they have, because they already told you they don't have internet. Then you go to the barrier question, which is, why do you not have internet access? If they do have internet access, then you ask them other questions on their service, but you do not ask them the barrier question because, I mean, they have internet, so apparently the barriers were not important enough. So make sure that it is structured logically and that the skips are in the right place. Of course, for the individual questions, the same issue goes. Question wording should also be clear and simple with short questions, and you should only ask one question at a time. So don't ask, did you use the internet and what device did you use? You know, no. Yes, maybe, a mobile phone. No. Did you use the internet? Yes, no. What type of device did you use? Tap, 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 tap. How often? And then you ask all the questions one by one. And try to ask the questions in an unbiased way. Don't presume that anything is right or wrong or good or bad. Just ask the question in a neutral way and let them choose the right answer. And make sure also that if you have categories that you list them in a logical way. Avoid recall error problems that, you know, but that is difficult. We already say we only focus on the last 3 months, so the questions should be as easy as possible so that people can actually remember their answer. Build trust with the respondent, make sure that they understand that their answers are treated in a confidential way. Avoid sensitive questions if possible. That is also very important that you don't ask, did you try to overthrow the government using the internet? That is not a question that you ask. Even if you want to know it, you ask it in a different way. Language is very important. The language should be clear. The question should be in the language that the respondent understands. So if you have multiple languages in your country, then you should make sure that you have multiple language versions available as well, so that the respondent can get the version that they understand. Testing, also very important, because you can think that you've made the best questionnaire of all times, and it's completely clear. But of course, it's completely clear to you because you work on it on a daily basis with the subject, so you understand everything, you know everything, and you think, okay, now this is completely clear. And then you give it to your mother, and she doesn't understand half of what you're saying. Then you made a mistake in your questionnaire design. So test it with a small group of people, go out there, let them answer the questions and see if it makes sense, but also ask them afterwards or during the testing, like, okay, what are you thinking now? What are your problems? Do you understand what I'm asking you? What do you think? What are your problems? Why are you hesitating? So that that you get to understand what the problems are in your questionnaire. And of course, I used your mother, my mother as an example. You have to make sure that it's understandable by a broad part of the population, that the 15-year-old understands it, but also the 74-year-old understands it, and that men understand it, women understand it, and higher education, low education, that it's understandable for all the different groups that we have in our societies. Also make sure that you check if it's not too long. So let a few people fill in the questionnaire and ask them to time it, to see how long it takes them to fill it in. Because if it's 45 minutes or an hour, that will negatively impact your response rate. You know, after a while, people say, "My God, more questions, more questions. I've had enough of it." Yeah, also your design should be in a way that it's clear that if you want them to tick a box, that they actually, if they have to do it by paper, that the box is big enough that they can tick it and that they know exactly where to put it, you know, that there's a clear line. The ICT questions, much of the same things that I already mentioned. Take into account language and culture. Adapt the questions. Don't just take the question out of the ITU manual. Think about what it means in the context of your country. And for example, especially in the difficult technical questions, like what kind of connections did you have? You can also think about what are the providers in my country, what do they offer? And then ask them that question, who is your provider? And do you have a little box in the house or what? So instead of using technical ITU talk, use language that they can relate to because they dealt with it when they cut their internet connection, for example. Also, the ITU asks a number of categories, a number of questions, etc., etc. You should always think about what you need for your own purposes. And in our questionnaire, we ask for 15 to, we group together 15 to 24 and 25 to 74. But in your national questionnaire, you can have multiple age groups. So the reference period, I mentioned this in the past, we had 12 months and 3 months, and there were a lot of issues with recall. So we decided to cut it to 3 months for all questions. So this, I mentioned it already as well. Internet access services is very technical and can be very complicated to answer. So related to the national situation, so that it becomes easier for the respondent to answer. And that's also why it's good to have interviewers, because you can, the interviewer can say, okay, can I see your internet connection box, for example, or do you maybe have a bill that I can look at the bill so we can see from the bill what kind of service you're having, and the interviewer can help a lot with answering that question. Scope and coverage. This is also something that I've discussed a lot with countries. We get questions about it. We question the countries as well when they submit the data. So the target population, what is your target population? We discussed the age cutoff. That is then a very important one. So if you're targeting everybody 10 years and older, then the 0 to 9-year-old are not covered, and your target population is people 10 to 74 or 10 years and older, depending if you put an age cutoff on the other side as well. And then you have to draw your sample from that target population, and you need to find the target frame, the frame population, to draw your sample from. Ideally, of course, you try to cover the whole country, but in some countries maybe it's not possible to cover some regions because there's unrest or war going on in that part of the country. Some areas may be very hard to reach because it's very mountainous and they're far away. Still, we recommend, of course, that the country should try to cover those areas as well. So this is what I mentioned. We do not recommend an age cutoff anymore, but practically you will have an age cutoff because you will not cover the babies and the very young children, so there will always be an age cutoff somewhere at the beginning. For practical reasons, you may also not cover, for example, people living in institutions, people living in old age houses, the military who may be living in barracks, for example, are sometimes excluded as well. So there could be parts of your population that are difficult to cover because you don't have the right information to draw your sample from, so you just exclude them and you note that on your submission. So the target population we discussed, the survey frame is, now that we have a target population, we need to make a sample and we have to, here are all the people in the country that are in our target population and we have to draw that from. We have to have this class. So it's often the National Statistical Office that has lists, that has registries, that has the list that you can draw your sample from. Because if you don't have it, then you cannot extrapolate the data to the total later on. So the census is often used because the census, it happens every 5 or every 10 years, but it gives you a full list of the population at a certain time. So that gives you the complete information, and that's a good place to start your sample from. Or some countries have a population register. You're obliged to register. I think in Oman, for example, with their compulsory identification card from age 15, that is also a good frame to draw your sample from. You may need different ones that you combine. That's a possibility as well. So this I will leave you to study. Here's the target population, and we see that there are certain parts that may be difficult to cover. So you have a little bit of under coverage on the one side and a little bit of over coverage on the other side. You may draw a sample that includes people that are not in your target population, so that is a pity because then you get answers that are useless and you're wasting people's time as well, but we're not telling them. So statistical unit, we have 2 units, the household and the individual. And we need information on both. We have core indicators and we have IDI indicators and we have SDG indicators that are partly on households, partly on individuals, so we need both. And households are about access and individuals are about usage. I mentioned that several times. So, a person is quite easy to identify. You are a person or you're not. And then, of course, you have all the different people that are covered or not. Households need additional definition, and now we're coming to the question that was asked a few times already. Sometimes it's not, the concept of household is a bit, you know, not completely clear. Living arrangements may vary across countries, across cultures, across regions. So it's not possible to define it in a completely consistent way. We have defined it for the purpose of the manual. A household is defined as a unit consisting of one or more people who may or may not be related to each other, who share an accommodation, and who make a common provision for food. So you can have more than one household living in the same building if they share accommodation, but they do separately, for example, their food. They eat in two groups. It can be two families living in one house and each family operates individually. But it can also be a student flat with 5 students living together in a house and they eat together. They are considered a household. Sample design and selection, we don't recommend a specific one. We leave that to the countries. There are different ways of sampling. Simple random sampling, complex sampling. I don't want to go deep into this at the moment, but sampling is very important. I had a few questions yesterday where I tried to draw it. You want to make sure that you can produce the output for all the breakdowns, which means that you have to sample in various strata. If, for example, you have to have the output by gender, by age, and by region, then you end up with, you have 2 genders. Let's say you're using 10 different age groups, and you have 10 different regions in your country. Then you have 2 times 10 times 10 is 200 different little boxes. And in all of those little boxes, you need to have covered people, because otherwise you cannot create the total for that small little box. And in that case, you will not be able to do the extrapolation to the total, and you will have one little box that is missing. For example, you won't be able to know the number of men between 25 and 34 living in region number 7, if you haven't sampled somebody there. So that's where your sample selection methodology becomes very important, and you usually have to work with your statistical office. And you have to make sure that in each of those boxes you cover enough people, or households, depending which part you're looking at, so that you can reliably can extrapolate the data to the totals. If, for example, in that region, in that little box, you have 10,000 people that are male between 25 and 34 and live in region number 7, and in your sampling you found only one person that answered the survey, then you're assuming that that one person is representative of all those 10,000 people, and that is not true. So your sample should be large enough that you at least have big enough numbers in all of those little boxes so that you, with confidence, can extrapolate to the total. Because we want extrapolated data. We don't want the survey data from country. What is the result of your survey? We want the data extrapolated. And since you can have different numbers in all of those boxes, your extrapolation weights can be different as well, for each of them, which means that your survey results are not necessarily the same as the extrapolated results. So if in your survey 70% of the people were using the internet, this may actually translate into 75 or 65% at the national level, depending on in which boxes you had more and less people and which weights you have been using. So this is not easy, because we also have then to deal with non-response, imputation of missing information. So we strongly recommend that for this you work with your NSO. If the NSO is not doing the survey, work with them, because they have the experience, especially on this part, on the sampling and the extrapolation part. Respondents. So you should have enough respondents. So sometimes where you know there's not a lot of people, you may oversample, asking a few more people so that you are sure to get enough responses for that little box. And respondents have to be selected in an unbiased way. If you decide to go to the mall and ask people their questions on their ICT use, you only get people that go to the mall. And people that go to the mall are different from people that do not go to the mall. So they have to be unbiased. In household survey, if you do a household survey, you can make it unbiased by either going into a household, you ask one person all the questions about the household access, and then for the individual questions, either you ask everybody, but if you do that, you really have to do everybody. So if there's somebody not at home, you should come back. And if they are not at home again, you should come back again, because otherwise you always get the people that are more often at home, which are not the same, which do not have the same characteristics as people that are always away. Or if you want to use only one person in the household, you have to make a selection in an unbiased way. So for example, you can say, okay, which person is the first one to have his or her birthday? And that person is selected, because that is random. So you can collect the data in various ways. Direct observation, postal interviews, face-to-face, telephone, computer-assisted telephone interviews, computer-assisted, I don't remember, a computer-assisted web interface, or online surveys. There's all different possibilities, and it's up to the country to do it, but try to use the method that gives you the best results, of course. Implementation of fieldwork. I talked a little bit about this yesterday as well. This is very important. Make sure that you organize it well, that you have all the material, all the equipment beforehand, that you have some publicity around it, that you select your interviewers and train them very well, that you have also some supervisors in the field as well, so that if an interviewer has a question, they can come to the supervisor and discuss. Follow-up of non-respondents, very important. If you have a high percentage of non-response to your survey, you should do a non-response analysis, because it may lead to biased results. If people that are too busy do not respond to your survey, and people that have a lot of time do respond to your survey, your results are likely to be biased, because those people have different characteristics and different behavior, and that can really bias your results. So your objective is always to reduce non-response by going back to people that didn't respond before, and by encouraging them to participate. Data processing is also something that we sometimes get questions on, that countries are struggling with. Unfortunately, we cannot really help there. We cannot, for example, create a module for countries to use, because it always will have to be adapted to the systems that the country is using, to the programs that the country is using, to the specific survey that the country is using. And then we have to maintain that, and it becomes a complete Pandora's box, and basically a complete nightmare. This is something that is requested sometimes, but it's just not feasible. So you will have to do the data entry, you have to do your editing, you have to impute for missing data and non-response, you have to do the weighting of the data, and the derivation and reporting of ICT household indicators. I don't want to go too deeply into this. But there's a lot of advice on how you can reduce errors in data entry. So I mentioned it before, if you use a paper form, then the paper form can contain mistakes, but also when you enter the paper results into your computer, you may make a mistake in transcribing the data. So if you use a computer directly, or a tablet, for example, or an online questionnaire, you're very much reducing the scope for errors. Try to build in some checks that you directly see if there's problems. Make sure that people cannot enter something which is impossible. Yeah, I don't want to. This becomes very detailed, and it's very useful advice. This is all copied from a course we have on ICT usage surveys, household surveys that last 5 days. So to cover that in 1 hour is difficult. Imputation for non-response. Sometimes you have a survey that is partially answered, so there are some elements missing. What you can do is look at the characteristics of the person that filled it in and look at what other people with the same characteristics have answered to those questions and use that as a basis to impute those answers so that you complete that survey, so that you can have a complete survey that comes in. You also have sometimes that the whole questionnaire has not been responded to. And there also you can use various methods to impute those answers. If non-response is large, then you should do a non-response analysis. Weighting of data, I already spent some time on this, and here I have had some discussions with some countries recently, more than one, where we really discussed this issue, and this is very important. If you're covering only 80% of your country, because you're only covering 10 years and older, so the 0 to 10 you're not covering, then we want the totals for 80% of your country. You cannot have the totals for the whole country, because you didn't cover a part of it, which is understandable and normal, but this is what it is. So you have to extrapolate the data from your sample to the target population, not to the total population. And I spoke about the little boxes, so you have to go into each little box where you had your sampling. So you look at your sampling strategy, and for each strata of your sampling, you look at how many people did I cover in my survey, how many people responded, and from the response, and how many people are actually in the target according to the population register. And then you have your grossing up factor, your factor to raise from the sample results to the total in that little box, and then you add up all the boxes, and then you have your total response. So this is something that comes in from the beginning when you do your survey design or when you do your sampling strategy. You have to think about that. So once you have entered all the information and done the grossing up, then the indicators themselves, they are not very complicated. If you have to write numerator and then write denominator, all you have to do is apply the formula. You know, the proportion of people using the internet, you just look at the people using the internet and the total population of the little strata that you're looking at, and you divide one by the other and you have your result. So the indicators themselves are not very complicated, but you have to make sure that you're always using the right population total. We ask the countries for the numbers, not for the percentages. We prefer to calculate the percentages ourselves. This gives us an extra check on the data. So you always need to do an evaluation afterwards. You always are, I mean, you're concerned about the data quality and you should keep a track of what happened. And the objective is to minimize error. There will be error, it's normal. There's sampling error, there's error in the reporting, in the processing, there's always error, but you try to minimize the error so that your results are reliable. So survey error can occur in a number of ways, and you can reduce it by using well-designed samples of sufficient size. And I keep on repeating this because I think it's very important. Carefully designing and testing questions and questionnaires, training of your interviewers, reducing non-response rates as far as possible, also by going back, and minimize data processing error. So this is a kind of a summary of a lot of things that I've said in the last half an hour. So after the survey, do an evaluation, talk to the people, talk to the interviewers, what went wrong, what went right, what could have done better, what happened to the budget, were we within budget or not. So do a careful and proper evaluation, talking to everybody, and be critical of yourself. And document everything so that for your next survey, you learn from what has happened. This is data dissemination. Of course, you want to do something with the data, not only report it to ITU, you should do a report also at the national level with a bit of publicity around it, bring the press, write a report, bring it out, hard copy, electronic format, CD, well, CD-ROMs, I think that is also getting obsolete by now. Tabulation plan, it comes at the end of my presentation, but it should actually be at the beginning of the process already. What do you want to get out of the survey? And that tells you which are the questions that you need to ask. So make your report even already before you do the survey. So create the tables that you want to populate, and that will tell you, that will inform you of the questions that you need to ask in your survey. Metadata, very important. Information about the process, information about the sample size, the response rates, everything documented carefully. So this is good for transparency, for the users of the data, and also for your own learning. I think I will quit this. I mean, I'm skipping a lot of slides, but there's a lot of good advice in it, so do read the slides afterwards. So when you report the data to ITU, make sure to include all the notes that are relevant, so that we understand the data as well. And this concludes my presentation on how to conduct ICT household surveys. So thank you for your attention, and please, questions if you have. Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you for presentation, Mr. Martin. I have the question regarding the individuals with ICT skills. In general, in the ICT skills, when we collect the statistics, do we need to include the, let's say, those who are working in the field of communication, and also those who, let's say, get education in the field of ICT? Which, let's say, breakdown is very correct here?
Now, the ICT skills are important for everybody. It's not just people working in ICT, but it's everybody needs to have ICT skills. ICTs are being used everywhere, also in a work environment. Even if you don't work in an ICT industry, you need to be able to deal with ICTs nowadays. If you are, even if you have a small shop, there's a lot of things that come in an electronic way, a reporting that you have to do, interaction with the government for your taxes, for example. Looking for a job, if you're looking for a job, it doesn't have to be a job in an ICT field, but a job in anyone, just to look for the jobs. Where do you find the jobs? A lot of jobs are now online. You may have to fill in an online application form. The interview may be by Skype. So for all of that, you need a certain amount of skills to deal with ICTs. If you want to get information of what's happening in the world, if you want to watch a YouTube video, if you want to be included in what's happening in society nowadays, you need some certain number of skills to navigate ICTs. So for all of that, you need ICT skills. So the ICT skills question is really a question to everybody. So not just to people working in the ICT field. I think we're ready for a coffee break.
Till 11.
Till 10? 11, okay. So coffee until 11. Thank you.
Dear participants, we start the final time slot of our workshop, final session, and we expect to finish around 1 p.m. Now we will have a round table on household indicators, then we have a country presentation from Kyrgyzstan, and after that we will have 2 more presentations from ITU. So let me hand over to Martin to continue.
Yes, thank you. I would like to do the same as we did, as Inigo did yesterday with the supply side. Go around the table and ask every country to give a brief overview of what they're doing on household surveys and how they coordinate it and what their main challenges are. So I think Inigo started there, so we start here, so we go the other way around just to be a little bit more equal. So if I can ask Algeria to...
No problem.
If you can just say a little bit what you're doing on household surveys and if you coordinate it and if there's any specific issues.
Thank you, Martin. Je pose mon question en langue française, Martin.
Oui, je peux traduire.
Ok. J'aimerais bien savoir, est-ce qu'il y a une possibilité d'envoyer le survey le questionnaire long par notre ministère, c'est pas pour l'Office national de statistique, puisque l'UIT envoie chaque année à notre Office de statistique le questionnaire long.
Okay, so the question is if we can send the long questionnaire to the ministry instead of to the NSO. Donc, il faut changer le point focal pour le
ministère.
Pour le long questionnaire, pour le households.
Yes.
Okay, donc.
Est-ce qu'il y a une possibilité?
Yes. If there's a possibility to change focal point, yes, absolutely. If the country agrees, it's the country that decides who the statistical focal point is for, on the one hand, the supply side indicators, on the other hand, for the household indicators. So if we have the wrong statistical focal point, because we always start from the assumption that it's the National Statistical Office, and we know that in many cases that is not the case anymore, or that it's the regulator or the ministry that is coordinating even if the NSO is involved, and that we really should be working with another entity, then let us know and we can change it. So if you can send me an email.
Okay, no problem.
And then I will make sure that we will change that.
Thank you, Martin.
So, vous êtes coordonné avec le NSO, le NSO qui fait le questionnaire, le survey,
oui.
Et vous qui repérez les données.
Ok, pas de problème.
Ouais. Est-ce qu'il y a des problèmes?
Non, problème de budget au niveau de l'ONS, notre office de statistique. On a essayé un peu de ranger un peu, on a pris en charge les frais de faire une enquête au niveau national.
Mm-hmm.
Et ça marche un peu.
Okay, so they are coordinated, they work together with the NSO, and the ministry is basically paying for the questionnaire, which is also a mode that we've seen in a number of other countries where either the ministry or the regulator is paying part of the cost and to do the survey that is then done by the NSO or in collaboration with the NSO. Thank you. I will make 2 notes. Change focal point. If we can move to Saudi Arabia, yes, please.
Thank you. So for Saudi Arabia, the case is the following. Currently, the household access survey is conducted by the CITC, which is the ICT regulator. The way it is conducted is that the CITC or the regulator is contracting with some research agencies to conduct those surveys with the length and complexity and details that we are seeking. When it comes to the sampling and profiling and these kind of things, our base is the NSO. That's why we have a coordination with the NSO when it comes to the population, with the households and all the distributions over the age, gender, nationalities, regional distributions, and all those, disaggregations. In the last 2 years, we have started to put more effort with the NSOs to put more focus on ICT. Until 2017, there was no ICT surveys being conducted by the NSOs. After that, they have started working with us, collecting our requirements, and they have started carrying out some ICT surveys. We are now, just last year, for example, we have signed a memorandum of understanding to start, collaborating and unifying the efforts when it comes to the ICT surveys. We're now working with them. One of the issues that we were facing is that the ICT questions, when it comes to the NSO, they were conducting only partial set of questions. They cannot cover all our ICT questions because of the length, and because of that they are including those questions as part of other surveys, other demographic and household surveys. So they cannot cover all our questions, especially the questions coming, some questions like the social media, or for example the e-commerce or the ICT skills, they cannot cover it because of the length. So we're now working with them to change the way they are conducting the surveys. We're planning to pay for all these surveys ourselves, to pay to them, so they can have stand-alone ICT surveys dedicated for us, customized for us, so that can include all the questions. Meanwhile, we're still conducting our standalone surveys through the research agencies. Currently, we are conducting through one of the universities' research centers, following all the directions and guidelines from the ITU. Challenges, of course, similar to any other country. When it comes to the demand side indicators, we have some challenges when it comes to some definitions or some framing or some data manipulations. But in general, for the core ICT indicators, I think we have no issues with that.
Okay, thank you very much. It is a similar model as we heard before, and I think that's a very good model. Thank you. Next one, Azerbaijan.
Thank you very much. So in our country, statistics for the household is conducted by the State Statistics Committee, and in general they are conducted survey based on yearly and annual, quarterly, and for the month. So in general, the procedure is like this. They can send, let's say, some letters to other organizations, or let's say other organizations also can do it online, and also. Currently, State Statistics Committee do some upgrading of its website, and a new website is called Statistical Information Service. Now it's working, and this website was created in collaboration with the Korean Republic, and there also let's say organization can enter this website and provide their data online. And also the challenge, regarding the challenge, of course it may be related with a time period or also with some indicators. And let's say some organization, because of the definitions, maybe can't provide some indicators, but currently State Statistics Committee also works on the upgrading its form of report, and now also was accepted also a program regarding the adaptation of the statistics to the international standards, and also some indicators are provided by our ministry to the statistics committee, but in general household statistics is works on this are implemented by the National Statistics Committee. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Belarus, I think.
Добрый день. Значит, показатели по домохозяйствам в Республике Беларусь собираются Национальным статистическим комитетом, который руководствуется, методологическая основа для сбора показателей являются рекомендации партнерства по измерению ИКТ. Период проведения измерений, опросов, точнее, это ежегодный. Опрос производится работниками Национального статистического комитета. Существуют методологии и формы вопросников, которые можно найти и прочитать на сайте Национального статистического комитета. Значит, агрегирование информации происходит по республике в целом, по областям и районам. Распространение через электронная база данных, которая размещается на сайте Национального статистического комитета, и статистический сборник по состоянию ИКТ в Республике Беларусь. Значит, для проведения опроса специалистами используется вопросник, в котором есть 11 вопросов, которые освещают: первое — это виды деятельности, связанные с использованием компьютера. Потом следующий вопрос — это использование интернета в течение последних 12 месяцев, то есть активное использование интернета. По целям использования интернета, по месту, по удовлетворенности качеством услуг, предоставляемых через сеть интернет, по использованию мобильного интернета, по частоте использования, по владению мобильным телефоном, использованию мобильного телефона последние 12 месяцев и удовлетворенность качеством мобильной связи. Вот такие основные вопросы, которые задают специалисты при опросе домохозяйств. Вот, в принципе, вот это вот вся информация, которая...
Thank you very much. If we can move to Egypt, please.
Mike. I'm not the responsible of the household questionnaire, so what I'm going to present here, it was presented by Hoda, our statistician. So if you have any question, I can communicate between you and our statisticians back home. Okay. So we have in Egypt different demand surveys. It depends upon our needs. We have surveys, an ICT standalone survey, which is an household survey. We also have an e-commerce survey. We have an ICT skills survey. We have e-health. We have health related to ICT adoption in the health sector. We have also ICT adoption in the education sector. We have in the private, in the government. As well as most recently we are more interested in the digital transformation as Belarus, but because currently the World Bank is conducting an assessment of the digital transformation in Egypt. So after the study that has been made for Russia and Malaysia, we were chosen also by the World Bank to do such a study. So we needed data, so we are currently also, we will launch demand surveys regarding the data collection for this. Regarding the ICT standalone survey, it's a random sample, it's stratified, it's multi-stages, it's clustered, it covers all the governorates in Egypt, rural and urban as well. And it's composed of 15,000 households in Egypt. As regarding to the challenges, actually our statisticians, they face a number of challenges due to the big size of the questionnaire, especially when it comes to the internet activities, as we saw. And as we saw that the ITU has been doing a lot of revisions in terms of this indicator specifically. So this affects the accuracy of results and in terms of, for example, the ICT skills indicators. So that's why we were, and the e-commerce as well, indicator. So that's why we were, because we're really interested in e-commerce in Egypt, so that's why we did also other surveys that are specialized in ICT skills and e-commerce. But then there are problems because those are sub-surveys of the parent survey. So our statisticians face problem regarding the response of the respondents and their mobility. They cannot really track them over time. There is some challenges regarding this. Also, there is a problem regarding the how to match between the disaggregation of the results that are extracted from the big household survey that is provided to that is delivered to the ITU and the surveys results that are conducted as a standalone survey, how we can compare the disaggregation of data between this and that and how we can match it. So they face this problem as well. Finally, they stated that they do not see sometimes that some indicators do not reflect what is really happening in Egypt and the development that is happening. So, for example, the individuals using the internet, they see that it's not reflecting what is happening as a development in Egypt. Thank you.
Thank you. I remember the presentation made by Nakwa at WTIS about the results from the skills survey standalone and comparing it with the ICT, and there were big differences there, so I can relate to those differences, problems. Iraq, please.
Thank you very much. The situation for Iraq is that the responsibility of conducting the household survey is the NSO by the coordination with us, the regulatory authority. It is a standalone survey, but again, unfortunately, this survey has not been conducted since 2014 due to national security issues. But in 2018, we have prepared all the necessary arrangements to conduct the survey this year by completing the form, and it's an electronic form in accordance with the ITU manual, plus some indicators in regards with the Iraq situation. We have trained the survey interviewers, and we have determined the areas targeted for all the country, and it will be 70% for urban areas and 30% for rural areas. And again, we determine the households, the number of households to be conducted. It is like 20,000 households. And this is our main challenge, is to get this survey done by this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next one, Kazakhstan, I think.
Значит, обследование домашних хозяйств в Казахстане проводится на основе годового обследования домашних хозяйств. Мы, значит, в Казахстане у нас порядка свыше 5 миллионов домашних хозяйств. Мы берем 0,5% выборки плюс 0,1 резерв. При обследовании мы используем рекомендации партнерства. Все те показатели, которые в этих рекомендациях рекомендованы, и они все у нас опрашиваются. Опрос у нас осуществляется face-to-face. На следующий год мы планируем, конечно, проводить опрос на основе с использованием планшета. Мы опрашиваем членов домашних хозяйств в возрасте 6 лет и старше. И мы спрашиваем пол, как вот вы говорили, родственные отношения между ними, возраст, образование, статус занятости. Также вот, когда мы опрашиваем, вопрос задаем, пользуется ли он мобильным телефоном, также мы включили вопрос, является ли он владельцем. И у нас помимо основного вопросника, касающегося вопросов по доступа домашних хозяйств, все, что касается домашнего, у нас есть индивидуальный вопросник для каждого члена домашнего хозяйства. Затем у нас данная выборочная совокупность распространяется на всю генеральную совокупность, то есть вопросы, относящиеся к домашним хозяйствам, мы распространяем на все домашние хозяйства, вопросы, касающиеся пользователей, мы распространяем на все население Казахстана. После проведения обследования мы рассчитываем стандартную ошибку, то есть коэффициент погрешности обследования. И если коэффициент погрешности составляет от 3 до 5%, мы считаем, что обследование прошло нормально. Ну и вкратце как-то так.
Thank you. That is very, very good, very impressive. We notice that in a lot of the CIS countries, there's still a very strong statistical system that is running good surveys, and that is very nice to hear. The next country, I'm not sure, is Kyrgyzstan, I think.
Спасибо. Сбор, в целом, по домохозяйствам, сбор всех этих сведений, не этих сведений, а в целом, сведения по домохозяйствам аккумулируются непосредственно нашим главным статистическим органом, Национальным комитетом по статистике. Но необходимо здесь отметить, что по сей день все индикаторы по домохозяйствам в области ИКТ, они к сожалению, не собираются нашим органом. И на сегодняшний день ведутся работы по включению всех этих вопросов скажем так, в сами опросники, которые осуществляет Национальный статистический наш орган. Спасибо.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to that. The next country is, which country are you?
Kuwait. Good morning. I do not speak English well, but we do conduct survey with survey companies. We are following them. That's all.
Thank you very much. I have been in touch a number of times with Kuwait, with people from Kuwait to talk about the household survey and some issues around sampling and extrapolation of the data. So we're well connected and things are clearly moving in the right direction. The next country, I have no idea which is the next country, so if you could also name your country, please. Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan.
Добрый день. Касательно сбора статистических данных по ИКТ у нас занимается Государственный комитет по статистике. Данные собираются квартально. Все крупные операторы связи ежеквартально сдают отчет. Что касается домохозяйств, на текущий момент в Узбекистане осуществляется сбор данных и определяется проникновение доли уровня проникновения интернета по монтированным и задействованным портам, но понятие домохозяйств на текущий момент только вводится. И мы сейчас на этапе определения этого понятия и реализации или сбора данных по данному виду. Надеюсь, мы с вашей помощью реализуем это понятие, введем и будем определять и давать статистику. Спасибо.
Yes, thank you. We're always very happy to support. As I mentioned, I've been in touch with a number of countries. We get questions by email that we're very happy to answer. Sometimes we set up conference calls that we discuss with the country on a specific issue. I mean, if it's a relatively small issue that we can deal with over the phone. So there's various ways that we can help you, and feel free to send your questions to us, and we're very happy to deal with them. The next country is Morocco.
Morocco, yes. Good morning, everybody. The annual survey in Morocco is conducted by the regulator, national authority regulating telecommunication. For this year, the survey is ongoing, in progress. We have a partnership with the National Office Statistics. They do the sampling design for the survey, and we are responsible for the questionnaire definition of indicators. And we have also partnership with other stakeholders, such as the ministry responsible of the sector, the National Bank, Central Bank, the Authority of Audiovisual, and the Economic Social Council. The questionnaire is designed according to the recommendation of the ITU, and the population scope is 5 years and over. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sudan?
Thank you. In Sudan, the regulator works in full collaboration with the National Statistical Office in conducting the ICT surveys, ICT household surveys. Now we have 3 household surveys done. The first one was in 2010, second on 2012, and the last one was in late 2016. Okay. We also consult some academia in sampling design and sampling. Okay. We ask questions to all family members that 5 years or more, okay, in terms of using the ICT devices. Our last survey was with response rate more than 95%, and now we are planning to have another survey with collaboration with UNICEF, maybe next year, to add some questions related to the ICT, in particular the indicators that used in the IDI. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very encouraging. Russia, please.
В Российской Федерации обследование об использовании домохозяйственными населениями ИКТ проводится Федеральной службой государственной статистики. Проводится оно на ежегодной основе в форме выборочного опроса населения. Охват населения порядка 170 54 тысяч человек, это 64 тысячи домашних хозяйств. Опрашиваются лица в возрасте 15 лет и старше. Задаем в процессе интервьюирования порядка 32 вопросов. Вопросы достаточно разнообразные. По домохозяйствам как бы использование КТ, по населению использование персональных компьютеров, интернета, электронная коммерция, взаимодействие с органами госвласти в электронном виде. Обследование не самостоятельное, оно проводится модулем к обследованию рабочей силы. Опрос проводится интервьюерами непосредственно с помощью планшетных компьютеров. И основные вызовы, которые мы пытаемся как бы реализовать, это информационное обеспечение стратегических документов правительства, конкретно государственной программы «Информационное общество» и стратегии информационного общества, также программа «Цифровая экономика». Спасибо.
Thank you, Martin. As I presented yesterday, our experience in conducting house ICT access and music household survey. Actually, who's responsible for conducting such surveys is the Information Technology Authority, but sometimes we collaborate with the NCSI, National Center for Statistics and Information. In 2013, we did a standalone survey. That time, we conducted ourselves. In 2016, we have a collaboration with NCSI. And that time also our survey, it was attached survey with 4 surveys, I think. One about tourism, the second about labor force, and one about some general characteristics about household, and other survey which is our survey. So it was heavy loaded time to conduct a survey. As I mentioned yesterday, it's better to have a standalone survey. We are planning for this. We are planning to conduct standalone. Now we are in preparation phase in terms of getting the updated maps and list of households in Oman. So we expect to be in the field work by the end of this year. That's mean the quarter 4, if possible. At the same time, we have a concern. Maybe by 2020 we have a census. So at that time it's difficult to be in the field. Still, we are not sure when will be the census. So if there is no census, we'll be in the field by quarter 4 or quarter 1 or 2 of 2020. So this is our experience with conducting ICT. By the way, we follow the methodology, standard, and everything mentioned in the manual. At the same time, we have some additional questions related to ITA, Information Technology Authority interest, for our own initiatives or projects in the for the national purposes. So this is our experience in terms of household surveys. If anything, Sharif? You would like to add anything? So this is our experience.
Thank you very much. And here as well, we see very good progress. It's very encouraging. I think this was a very useful roundtable. I think it's very interesting to see that we know that in the CIS region there are generally strong statistical. The NSO is generally quite strong and taking care of the IST survey. And what we see in the Arab region is that more and more it's the regulator or the ministry taking the responsibility, working together with the NSO and finding a joint way of doing it, either by funding the NSO to do a survey or to do the survey, but with the help of the NSO in terms of sampling and sampling design. And I think that is an emerging model that is not highlighted enough in the manual. So when we revise the manual, we will change that and we will stress that more. We see that in other parts of the world as well. I also noticed that countries are more and more starting to do surveys or continue to do surveys, so that more and more we will have the data that we require for the IDI. But eventually we're hoping that the data will be used at the country level, because that's really what the main purpose should be. So I'm very encouraged by this roundtable. I see a lot of progress, and I think that's great. So thank you, and this concludes the ICT household survey part of the training. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin, and thank you everyone for expressing your experiences. We now move to the country presentation of Kyrgyzstan, and our next speaker is Ms. Kunduz Tashmatova. She is Chief of Market Analysis, Department State Communications Agency, State Committee of Information Technology and Communication of the Kyrgyz Republic. Пожалуйста, сюда перемещайтесь, да, чтобы вас было видно в камеру.
Спасибо. Добрый день, дамы и господа. Позвольте в первую очередь от имени Кыргызской Республики поблагодарить принимающую сторону наших братьев-соседей Узбекистан за столь радушный прием. Думаю, что мы вполне уже оценили ваше гостеприимство, и не только гастрономическим, но и, скажем так, эстетическим удовольствием в том числе. И мы ожидаем вторую половину быть такой же интересной и полезной для каждого из нас. Я по просьбе Фарида постаралась сделать презентацию, в том числе на английском языке, для визуального, более понятного восприятия нашими коллегами, сидящими в этом зале. Буду достаточно краткой в своем докладе. Пойдем дальше, да? Как я отмечала раньше, сбор данных по ИКТ и связи осуществляется непосредственно двумя органами в нашей стране. Первое – это Национальный статистический комитет. Второе – это Государственное агентство связи, являющееся регулятором при Государственном комитете информационных технологий и связи. Говоря уже о работе Национального статистического комитета, что мы можем сказать? Так сильнее надо, да?
This one? It should be working. Which way around?
This one.
This one?
Ah, it's up.
Ah, magic.
Okay. Национальный статистический комитет в своем виде имеет 4 формы отчетности, которые он непосредственно запрашивает у респондентов в лице физических и юридических лиц, а также индивидуальных предпринимателей, организаций, осуществляющих деятельность в области образования. И, как мы видите, это форма номер 1, связь, отчет об услугах связи, оно предоставляется как в стоимостном и натуральном выражении. Отчет номер 12 – это, в принципе, по содержанию идентично, единственное, там срок предоставления месячная. Далее у них также имеется форма номер 2 – информатизация, где отражается информация об использовании ЭКТ. И последняя форма номер 3 также отражает информацию об использовании ЭКТ, но в образовании. Здесь следует отметить, что необходимая информация для предоставления в ITU в том числе, а также для заполнения индикаторов целей устойчивого развития, к сожалению, они не включены в имеющиеся формы Национального статистического комитета. И в этой связи Мартин это прекрасно, наверное, знает и непосредственно об этом у нас спрашивает, где наши данные. Да по домохозяйствам, к сожалению, мы также не проводим работу по сбору необходимой информации в этой связи. По Кыргызской республике позиции по домохозяйствам остаются незаполненными, что напрямую влияет на оценку, то есть на измерение нашей страны в общем рейтинге IDI. Далее, Государственное агентство связи является регулятором в области телекоммуникаций и, будучи лицензиаром, в рамках лицензионных требований у операторов принимает форму отчетности на ежеквартальной основе. Всего утверждено 12 форм отчетности в области электрической и почтовой связи, и здесь вы как раз можете увидеть ряд, скажем, одну форму, которая отражает сведения об услугах почтовой связи, но, коль уж мы говорим всецело об деятельности Государственного агентства связи, я про почтовую связь тоже упомяну. Значит, всего 12 форм, которые вы видите на своих экранах, да? Думаю, нет необходимости проходить по каждому из них. Могу лишь отметить, что понимая вот высокую значимость для Кыргызской республики о необходимости правильного сбора информации, как раз-таки по итогам прошлого семинара, который прошел в Алмате в 2018 году, Государственное агентство связи начало работу по разработке новых форм отчетности, и мы поняли, что разработка форм отчетности – это очень трудоемкий процесс, и элементарно при разработке формы номер 1, которая отражает отчет о выручке от услуг электрической почтовой связи, у нас возник ряд вопросов, которые мы сами внутри не смогли разобраться в этой связи, но не только в этой связи. Мы обратились в региональное отделение МСЭ за экспертной помощью и надеюсь, что благодаря вашему отклику мы сможем добиться каких-то положительных результатов в этом направлении. Так, следом. Я хотела бы также отметить, что как происходит сам сбор информации в Государственном агентстве связи. Все операторы, они, исходя из того, какую лицензию имеют на осуществление деятельности в области электрической почтовой связи, предоставляют ряд именно форм, которые они заполняют в бумажной версии. Эту бумажную версию они приносят нам, и уже сотрудники Государственного агентства связи вручную вбивают каждую цифру, каждую информацию в Excel-файл. Я так поняла, что в принципе многие работают с Excel, но у нас, к сожалению, мы до сих пор работаем на традиционных бумажных носителях. Это тоже очень трудоемкий процесс, порой играет роль, конечно, человеческого фактора, также имеет место быть, там система иногда может глючить, что-то в этом роде. То есть у нас на самом деле очень много вопросов, которые следует поднять, и участие в таких мероприятиях дает нам возможность открыть заново глаза не только нам, но и нашим внутренним коллегам, руководителям наших органов, поскольку иногда мы не совсем друг друга понимаем относительно необходимости и важности предоставления корректных данных непосредственно в Международный союз электросвязи. Ну и последние нововведения, изменения были проведены в 2016 году. Форма номер 31 «Сведения об обмене на сетях электросвязи». Так, как было отмечено ранее, презентацию Республики Узбекистан мы это подробно увидели. Рейтинг стран Центральной Азии, СНГ в IDI. И, к сожалению, мы уже на протяжении многих лет занимаем, скажем так, одни из последних мест, обусловленные в первую очередь отсутствием сведений по ряду показателей. Если взять в целом, например, возьмем заполнение большого вопросника по ИКТ за 2018 год. Если ранжировать все 67 пунктов, которые включены в этот вопросник по разделам, и в каждом разделе посчитать удельный вес наличия либо же отсутствия данных, то мы получаем следующую диаграмму, где мы видим, что в целом порядка 63% этих показателей, они То есть данные по ним были предоставлены, к сожалению, по оставшейся части 37% у нас данных не имеется. То есть в целом эти данные, они аккумулируются на основании всех этих, на основании данных, которые предоставляют нам операторы, согласно ранее отмеченным формам отчетности. Кыргызстан понимает, что все мы говорим о цифровизации экономики и о том, что, как отмечал коллега из Беларуси, скажем так, мы идентифицируем эту цифровизацию как с горизонтом, мы стремимся к ней, но пока к нему не можем дотянуться и достичь. То есть для нас это также является основным направлением развития страны, которое в первую очередь нашло свое отражение в принятом в прошлом году национальной стратегии развития до 2040 года. И ключевым, скажем так, инструментом достижения развития является обеспечение, так же как и формирование самого этой цифровизации не только экономики, но и страны в целом. И в этой связи была разработана и принята в декабре прошлого года концепция цифровой трансформации до 2023 года, то есть, грубо говоря, это пятилетка. И как раз-таки в этой цифровой трансформации, концепции цифровой трансформации Кыргызской Республики, одним из главных, скажем так, критериев является переход к самой цифровизации, цифровому Кыргызстану. Какова связь этой программы, концепции с IDI? Она у нас прямая. Скажем, основной целевой индикатор реализации концепции в области ИКТ это является достижение, то есть какую позицию мы можем занять в глобальном индексе развития ИКТ. И как мы видим из таблицы, это опять же отражено в самой концепции, что если за базовый мы принимаем прошлый год, мы были на 109-м месте по итогам 2017 года, поскольку за 2018 год рейтинг не удалось составить ввиду отсутствия сведений во многих странах. Далее мы поделили, скажем так, запрогнозировали наш рост путем того, что ожидаем, что к 2023 году мы уже займем 86-е место в общем рейтинге IDI. То есть цели у нас очень большие, планы, у нас есть к чему стремиться. И хотелось бы здесь поблагодарить каждого из вас за возможность услышать опыт каждой страны. И на самом деле я выражаю лично восхищение к каждой стране. И вы вдохновляете на самом деле идти вперед, поскольку все в наших руках. Резюмируя, могу отметить, что какие основные задачи стоят перед Кыргызской Республикой. Это, как было отмечено ранее, разработка и утверждение новых форм отчетностей, проведение обследований домохозяйств, именно охватывающих показатели ИКТ, связи, которые мы очень бурно обсуждали на протяжении этих 3 дней. Как следовательно, у нас стоит такой вопрос об автоматизации сбора административных статистических данных. Но и особое внимание я бы хотела обратить на последнюю задачу. Я бы сказала, что это основная и самая важная задача – это повышение квалификации специалистов, которые занимаются статистикой в области ИКТ. Как это было отмечено в докладе Арсения Плоских. Почему именно повышение квалификации, да и в целом от специалистов зависит наше будущее, именно в статистике. Сидящиеся здесь, я думаю, вы являетесь высококомпетентными в своем деле, и именно на вас, на нас строится вся экономика, статистика и цифровая страна, цифровой Кыргызстан и так далее. Ну и это мое личное мнение, что каждый из нас, каждый присутствующий в этом зале, все специалисты, которые занимаются ИКТ, которые вносят свой личный вклад в развитие статистики ИКТ своей страны, являются частичкой краеугольного камня самой статистики. Ну и так, спасибо вам за внимание.
Подождите, пожалуйста. Спасибо большое, Кундуз. Пожалуйста, вопросы, please, questions. Арсений.
Благодарю. Добрый день, коллеги. Есть несколько вопросов, Кундуз, к вам. В силу некоторых обстоятельств я немного знаком с вопросами статистики в вашей стране. Вот. Вы говорите, что вы не собираете данные по домохозяйствам в области связи. Тем не менее, насколько я помню, в одном из, а даже, возможно, в нескольких статистических сборниках, которые публикуются на вашем сайте, вы представляете данные по объему услуг связи, потребляемых по домохозяйствам. В связи с этим тогда вот первый вопрос. Каким образом вы собираете таковые данные, если вы говорите, что по домохозяйствам данные у вас не собираются? Это первый вопрос. Второй вопрос. Как в вашей стране происходит валидация данных, то есть подтверждение? Анализируя ряд источников статистических, я обращал внимание, что в некоторых случаях данные, которые приводятся, допустим, по объему услуг связи, если идти от оказанных услуг на население, получаются цифры одни. А если идти от обратного, то есть от тех данных, которые пока показаны по объему рынка услуг связи, в целом получаются данные другие. Каким образом идет проверка данных для устранения некоторых несоответствий? Спасибо.
Спасибо большое, Арсений, за вопросы. На первый вопрос хочу ответить следующее. Домохозяйство обследуется в целом, где включены ряд вопросов, которые частично могут затрагивать, скажем так, сферу ИКТ, но все индикаторы, все показатели, которые отражаются непосредственно в вопросниках ITU, они, к сожалению, не являются составной частью всех этих вопросников, которые осуществляет Национальный статистический комитет. Это первое. Второе. Как мы это подтверждаем, все данные? Здесь бы я хотела также отметить некий такой казус, который у нас имеется по объемам услуг. Если взять в стоимостном выражении статком, Национальный статистический комитет, он собирает самостоятельно сам свои данные у тех же самых операторов. В свою очередь я имею в виду, прошу прощения, Государственное агентство связи, будучи регулятором, также собирает, согласно форме 1, сведения об объемах услуг, о выручке. И всегда у нас был такой дисбаланс. Это было всегда. На вопрос, а почему у нас такое несоответствие, они отвечали, что им предоставляют операторы данные. Вот их ответы правильные. В то же время мы говорим, у нас все операторы есть, мы их лучше знаем, а у нас данные данные у нас есть. На самом деле мы до сих пор не разобрались, в чем вопрос. И второе, например, также в структуре ВВП, если взять, там есть одна из составляющих компонентов, это информация и связь, удельный вес. И там натуральное выражение, в принципе, мы тоже можем узнать. И даже эта информация, данные по информации и связь, которые аккумулируются статкомом, собираются, формируются, она отлична от нашей. Они это объясняют тем, что Национальный статистический комитет, что сюда включаются не только информация, точнее объем услуг от оператора связи, почтовой связи, но также от тех юридических и физических лиц, которые занимаются рекламой, то есть СМИ и все прочее. То есть здесь тоже у нас имеется вопрос, который стоит уточнить, откорректировать и решить на самом деле. Будучи же лицензиаром, ранее у нас в Государственном агентстве связи были полномочия проводить проверки. И как раз-таки в рамках проведения надзорных проверок Государственное агентство связи могло сопоставить данные, которые отражаются в формах, которые предоставляются в агентство связи, с данными, которые они сдают в налоговую декларацию, в налоговый орган, то есть в налоговой декларации. Но сейчас же мы это не можем подтвердить, насколько они, операторы, предоставляют верные данные. Мы лишь ссылаемся на то, что это административная и статистическая отчетность, и как по нормотворчеству, по нормативному, скажем, законодательству, скажем, мы верим на то, что они предоставляют верные данные. Точнее, мы им доверяем или как-то вот в таком формате, можно сказать.
Благодарю за ответы. Все, в общем-то, понятно. И еще один вопрос, но это так из категории более философского. Вы говорите, что у вас основной индикатор цифровизации вы хотите привязать к месту в ADI, к ранжированию. Как вы считаете, ну это ваше вот личное мнение, как вы считаете, не является ли ошибкой такая привязка? То есть вы привязываетесь таким образом не к собственному росту тех показателей, которые входят в ADI, а к тому, что, допустим, в других странах тоже не произойдет такой бурный рост цифровизации, и вы в рейтинге, то есть вы показатели свои улучшите, но место в рейтинге, возможно, у вас и не изменится, потому что вы будете зависеть от того, как пойдет цифровизация в других странах. Не является ли более эффективным методом, скажем так, выявление просто тенденции роста или, допустим, процентный рост по соответствующим субпоказателям? Я понимаю, вопрос такой, знаете, философский, как вот вы думаете. Спасибо.
Спасибо за вопрос. Я уточнюсь, что вот именно целью, либо же как таргет, да, достижения этой цифровой экономики, цифрового Кыргызстана выступает не только определенное 86-е место в IDI, например, но там есть целый пакет других рейтингов, других показателей, которые в целом будут отражать, насколько мы продвинулись в цифровизации своей страны. Это первое. Но во-вторых, как вы отметили, на самом-то деле, даже если взять за последние годы, 2017 по сравнению с 2016, само значение IDI Кыргызской Республики, оно увеличилось. Но при этом это не поменяло позиции Кыргызской Республики в самом рейтинге по позиции. То есть это, опять же, вы абсолютно правы, я с вами согласна, что лично мое мнение не стоит привязывать к месту в рейтинге. Стоит привязывать к самому значению, к индивидуальному росту страны, поскольку, да, мы не единственные, которые стремятся к этому, все стремятся к этому, и у одних стран получается лучше, у других не очень. То есть я поддерживаю ваше мнение, но не я это разработала, так это все разработано. Мы работаем с чем мы имеем. Спасибо.
Да, пожалуйста, еще вопросы, please, questions.
Just a comment that I forgot to mention during the roundtable, that in Egypt we do not collect the surveys by ourselves. We do not do all the work by ourselves. Definitely the NSO is our main partner. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Пожалуйста, вопросов не вижу. Спасибо большое. Да, тогда мы продолжаем. So we continue with two remaining presentations, and let me invite my colleague Karim Abdelghani, Program Coordinator of the Arab Regional Office of ITU, and the presentation on ITU expert groups, please.
All right, so we've heard a lot about the expert groups. Probably all of you are experts on the expert groups by now, but let me go over quickly what they actually do. So first we will talk about the expert group on telecommunication indicators, ECTI. And basically this was launched in 2009 following the decision by the 7th World Telecommunications ICT Indicators meeting in Egypt. The main objective, of course, is the revision of the telecommunications ICT indicators and of the ITU handbook on telecommunications ICT indicators. It is open to all ITU members and experts in the field of ICT statistics and data collection. It works through an online forum. It meets once a year and reports back to the WTIS. You can register to the ECTI through the link indicated below. The work program for 2019 consists of 6 topics. The first one, carryover 5G and IoT indicators shared with the expert group on household indicators. The second one is international roaming indicators. The third one is fixed broadband internet traffic. A subgroup will be created within ECTI for this topic. The fourth one is indicators on quality of service. Another subgroup will be created within ECTI for this topic. The fifth one is revision of existing indicators. And the sixth one is sharing innovative practices and open topics for questions and answers. The 10th meeting for ECTI will be in the week of the 16th of October in Geneva.
September.
Oh, 16th of September.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a mistake.
That's a mistake. It will be in the week of the 16th of September in 2019 in Geneva. This is a sample or a screenshot of the online forum of ECTI. If you go inside, you can see the indicator on the calendar of on the left, and on the right, obviously all the interactions and the topics within the forum. The second expert group is the expert group on household ICT indicators. And this was launched in May 2012, also in the World Telecommunications ICT Indicators meeting held in Mauritius in December 2011. The main objectives is to revise the revision of the household core ICT indicators and of the ITU manual for measuring ICT access and use by households and individuals. It is open to all members and experts in the field of ICT statistics and data collection. It works through an online forum as well, and it meets once a year and reports back to the WTIS. You can register as well through the link below. This is a sample as well for this is how to register in the forum. When you open the link indicated on top of this screen, you'll have a very straightforward registration form that you just fill out and hopefully just press submit and you'll be registered. The EGH discussions mainly focus on, it's mainly a platform to suggest new indicators to be added to the core indicators. And it's a platform to discuss, revise, delete old core indicators where necessary, as well as revise methodology definition of the core indicators. The main topics for 2019 focus on further work on ICT skills. This will have a subgroup that would focus on this topic. Then better measuring internet users, then security, then community connectivity indicators, then developing questionnaire modules for new areas of measurement, for example, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, e-waste, mobile money, or financial inclusion. Then child online protection, Internet of Things, e-waste, and big data, followed by country experiences and national coordination. The 7th meeting will take place on the 16th of September also, 16th of September 2019 in Geneva. So finally, again, these are the web pages for both expert groups, if you don't already know them, and I think this concludes the presentation. Are there any questions or comments? Thank you.
Maybe we should correct those shorts when they go online. You mean with the dates?
The dates, yes.
Yeah. Just as Martin said, we will update the slides before uploading them to the website to put the dates of the expert group meetings. And then moving to the final presentation, activities. Again, let me invite my colleague Martin Schaper, Senior ICT Analyst, and the presentation on how to report your survey data to the ITU. You're speaking from here.
I will remain here. So this is also going to be a rather short presentation, and I think most of you know how this works. Just for completeness, data collection practicalities, we use focal points for statistics where we send that we interact with on the questionnaires. We have been requested also now since last year to inform the ITU focal point, because the ITU focal point is usually not the same person as the statistical focal point. We have a statistical focal point for household surveys and a statistical focal point for the WTI questionnaire. So we used to send the notification only to the statistical focal point of the respective questionnaire, but we have been requested to also send the notification to the ITU focal point, and sometimes that leads to a little bit of confusion because then too many people try to answer the questionnaire, so there needs to be a good coordination at the national level to complete the questionnaire. If already we heard from Algeria that they requested a change in focal point, if you feel that we are not having the right statistical focal point, send an email to us, indicators@itu.int, or to one of us, to me, and we will make sure that it gets changed. The questionnaires are web-based, except for the household long questionnaire, which is Excel-based. The questionnaires and definitions are all available on our website. There's a link there. So if you look for it, it's a bit difficult. So you have to go to statistics and then to go to questionnaires. And then you have all the sample questionnaires and all the definitions of all the questionnaires, which is also a very useful tool. The questionnaire schedule has changed a little bit compared with last year. The short questionnaire, instead of having it only open for 2 weeks, towards the end of March, the beginning of April, Resolution 131 instructs us to open it immediately. But since, especially for the telecom indicators, countries don't have the information in January because the regulator needs to talk to the operators need to collect the information, send it to the regulator needs to aggregate the data, then send it to ITU. So often the operators only have the information available and often only provisional towards the end of March. So we need to keep it open at least until the middle of April to ensure that we get as much data as possible. So now the survey, the short questionnaire, are open for 3 months. The price data collection, we've discussed this already this seminar as well. We moved that as well so that we can include the information in the Measuring the Information Society report at the end of the year. So we changed that to the middle of March until the end of March. The long questionnaire has remained the same, opening in the middle of September, keeping it open for 6 weeks until the end of October. So the role of the National Statistical Focal Point is to make sure basically that the questionnaires get completed and submitted to the ITU, and that whenever we have questions, when we are validating the data, that they can answer us, or at least they can direct us the questions to the person responsible for the particular question. These are also the people that are usually attending this kind of workshops, the ACTI, EGH, and the online expert groups. And there's one focal point, but of course there's more people involved in it, so the focal point then coordinates within their country with the other people. So this, I kind of mentioned it already, that we have a focal point. If there's a change in focal point, inform us so we can update our database and send the notifications and the questions to the right person. And ideally, the national focal point should also make sure to promote ICT statistics within the country. So you send us the data, we check the data. We have a number of checks that we apply. We make sure that, for example, the fixed broadband subscriptions by speed, if you add up the different speed tiers, that it doesn't exceed the total number of subscriptions, or that it adds up. So also if it doesn't add up to the total, we ask a question, why doesn't it add up? Is there something that is not covered, or did you make a mistake? Same for the breakdown by technology. So we have a number of those kind of checks that we make sure that the data makes sense and are consistent. The long household questionnaire, which I said is in Excel, the Excel has macros built in that already perform a number of checks. Before you submit the data, you can run the checks and see if there's any mistakes in the data. In consistency, for example, the total number of households cannot be bigger than the total number with the telephone, does not exceed the total number of households, those kind of checks. Aggregation checks, so that male plus female equals the total. Format checks, so that you don't fill in a note where you should be filling in a value and the other way around. So whenever something like that occurs and you, at the end of the process, you click check data, and a different sheet opens up telling you about all those problems in the questionnaire. Other checks that are being performed is we check if there's a consistency in the time series, if there are not too big jumps. We can check, for example, if we think that the number of internet users is very high, then we look at how many subscriptions are there. So it's not a one-on-one relation, but of course there is a relation between the two. So if one is very high and the other is very low, then clearly there is a mismatch at the national level. And we do all kind of other checks, and whenever we have questions, we direct them to the national focal points, and you certainly have heard from us already sometime. So when you have the household long questionnaire, there is a button that once you've completed all the information, there's a button that says check data. You click on that button, and then there's a number of checks that are being performed that we spoke about already, that the totals match, that the aggregations match, that subcategories match are not bigger than the total, that the formatting is right, that the nodes have text, and that the values are values and not anything else. And as I mentioned, a different worksheet opens up with the problems identified through the macros. So that gives you the opportunity to correct them and submit it. Data caps are a serious challenge, and we noted that for the IDI, that some indicators are missing for many countries. So it's very important that we receive complete data. There's many reasons why there are data caps. It can be that the data is not collected yet. It can be that the NSO doesn't have the amount of resources needed to conduct a household survey. It can be that there's insufficient coordination at the national level. So whatever the reason, and we talked about all of them during the workshop, it would be good if you could try to address them at the national level to close the data gap. So coordinate with the different stakeholders can help here. You can carry out user needs and satisfaction surveys about specific dimensions of data quality. You can get feedback on the statistical plan, especially the national plan on the dissemination of statistics, the NSDS. You can share the data submissions with all the stakeholders to get feedback and to get comments, and maybe also to be able to plug some of the holes in the data collection. And what I mentioned before, pooling of resources to address specific data caps, such as the regulator funding the NSO to conduct a household survey, can be a very effective measure to close the data cap on household data. If in the end there's still no data, but we do need the data for two reasons. We need the data for the IDI. So for all the IDI indicators, if data are missing for your country, we estimate the data. And there's also a number of indicators that we create global and regional totals for. Those are mainly some of the IDI indicators, plus I think fixed telephony, which is the only one which is not in the IDI anymore. So those data, we also make estimates and use them for the global totals. Now, the estimates for the global totals, we don't publish them, but the other estimates, we do publish them in the database. So if you don't give us the data, we estimate them. We send the data to the country saying, okay, this is the missing data and this is the estimates that we are making for the IDI. And then you can basically sign off of them. And if you have a problem with them, then you contact us and we discuss it. So how do we estimate data? Various methods. If possible, we use historical data and extrapolate from there. We have all kinds of models using time series, using regression models, using GNI per capita, and maybe other indicators. So, for example, to estimate the proportion of internet users, we can use the subscription data to make an estimate. We don't say subscriptions is users, because that's not the case, but we can look at other countries of a similar characteristic that do have all the data. We model it, and from there on, we can make an estimate for the country that we are looking at. We make cross-checks, we compare with other countries of similar nature, and we use the data from other countries to make estimates. In case of severe lack of information, estimations may not be possible, especially if there's no data at all for the country for many years. For an indicator that we don't have information on for a lot of countries, then it becomes very complicated, and this is something that we've seen for some of the IDI indicators. So dissemination, this is basically where Farid started yesterday already. We have the database that we, for the moment, publish twice per year, but we're moving into rolling updates of the database, and we have to see how that fit into selling of the database, or if we have to depart from there. We have data visualization for the IPB. We also have one for the IDI, but of course it's not updated because we didn't publish it last year. We have our statistics website where you can find a lot of information, including some of the data. We have the ICTI, which is our database that also has the regulatory information. And then we publish the information in the MISR, in IST facts and figures, and in the yearbook.
It's like Harry Potter.
Yes. And this concludes my presentation on data reporting and basically the content part of this workshop. Do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you very much, Martin, and Nigo, and all the experts, all the speakers for these amazing presentations, all your effort. So we're now moving to the closing ceremony, and I would invite everyone to put on your headphones because I believe people will be speaking in Russian in the closing ceremony. So before we proceed, and first of all, I would like to invite host country representative. Позвольте пригласить для церемонии закрытия представителя Министерства по развитию информационных технологий и коммуникаций Республики Узбекистан Тимур Машанпин, начальник управления перспективного планирования сетей телекоммуникаций. Пожалуйста, Тимур.
Assalamu alaikum. Ahlan wa sahlan. Marhaba to Uzbekistan. Thank you for everybody for participating. Большое спасибо всем за участие, активное. Мы вот изначально, когда планировали проведение данного мероприятия еще в прошлом году, не ожидали, что будет столько количества участников и что настолько будет плодотворное наше мероприятие, но очень отрадно, что было очень много заинтересованных стран, даже кто-то участвовал без регистрации, вот напрямую приехали, были гости из Кореи. Надеюсь, это не самое последнее мероприятие, в котором вы участвуете в Узбекистане, в Ташкенте. У нас вот очень много достопримечательностей и культурных, и гастрономических, и архитектурных. Надеемся, в будущем вы с этим непосредственно сами и сможете познакомиться, ознакомиться и всем своим друзьям, близким об этом всем рассказать. Надеюсь, замечаний, нареканий в сторону организаторов не было. Если были какие-то упущения, прошу прощения за это. Погода тоже радовала наших участников, то есть и были и солнечные дни, и дождик такой приятный. Следующее мероприятие было озвучено, планируется провести в арабских странах. Мы думаем, мы с удовольствием поедем и ознакомиться вот непосредственно с опытом наших партнеров из арабских стран, которые тоже, вот, думаем, очень успешно участвуют в мероприятиях ITU. Есть активные участники в виде, в качестве вот Саудовской Аравии. Мы вот очень плотно работаем с Мансуром, который вот из Саудовской Аравии, который тоже так теребит ITU, департамент статистики, своими комментариями. Спасибо Мартину за такой насыщенные презентации, которые вот были очень полезны. Спасибо всем докладчикам, которые вот выступали на мероприятии. Спасибо особое вот Иниго за его опыт. Этот человек имеет очень большой опыт руководства в экспертной группе ЭКТИ, да? Мы вот много сталкиваемся, много контактируем. Большое спасибо всем участникам, вот, кто приехал, получил знания. Надеемся, это вам поможет в ближайшем деятельности, позволит нам улучшить качество предоставляемых данных, улучшит наши показатели не только в рейтинге, то есть население, наши потребители, абоненты почувствуют на себе не только вот росты наших индикаторов, а именно в сторону улучшения качества предоставляемых услуг. Всем большое спасибо. И вот в конец хотелось бы поблагодарить особенно Фарида. Он тоже очень переживал насчет этого мероприятия. И большое спасибо нашему тоже команде. Они вот днем и ночью, кто-то принимал участие в встрече, проводах наших гостей, организаторы. Всем большое спасибо.
Да, спасибо большое, Тимур, за ваше гостеприимство, за ваши теплые слова. Позвольте также для финального слова пригласить Нуруддина Насрединовича Мухиддинова, генерального директора регионального содружества области связи. Пожалуйста.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги, уважаемый Фарид. Большое спасибо за такую предоставленную возможность сказать несколько слов по итогам сегодняшнего семинара, который имеет трехдневную историю. Мы обсуждали очень важные и очень серьезные темы, которые заботят и простых жителей, и государственные, и властные структуры, потому что индикаторы показателя развития информационного общества, развития цифровой экономики – это те показатели, которые сегодня являются актуальными для практически всех стран. Если в стране не занимаются информационным обществом и цифровой экономикой, то эта страна уже обречена на неуспеваемость. Я абсолютно уверен, что таких здесь нет. И наше обсуждение, вновь привлечение нашего внимания к статорганам, к администрациям связи, они выведут на новый, соответственно, уровень внедрения информационных технологий в наших странах. Хотелось бы сказать большое спасибо нашим коллегам из арабского региона. У нас есть соглашение о сотрудничестве между РСС и между арабской группой. И, конечно, вот наша совместная работа, она сближает позиции континентов. Хотелось бы еще сказать, что в региональном содружестве связи вопросами информационного общества мы уделяем очень важное значение. Есть специальная рабочая группа высокого уровня, которая обсуждает вопросы информационного общества и принимает соответствующие решения. И эта работа у нас также проходит и на самом высоком уровне, на заседании Совета глав администрации связи. Также мы все имеем ориентиры развития информационного общества. В первую очередь это цели устойчивого развития, которые приняты Генассамблеей ООН в декабре 2015 года. Это прошедшая полномочная конференция МСЭ в Дубае, которая прошла в конце прошлого года. И хотелось бы сказать, что сегодня, после нашего завершения, мы очень коротко проведем в 14 часов нашу комиссию по инфокоммуникациям в региональном содружестве связи. Тоже наша работа – это продукт совместного сотрудничества РСС и ITU. Мы используем площадку. То, что 3 дня вы обсуждали в вопросах деятельности индикаторов и показателей, они будут отражены уже в наших документах, которые будут приняты на комиссии с дальнейшим рассмотрением на рабочей группе высокого уровня и Совета глав администрации связи. Хотелось бы сказать, что Узбекистан – это та страна, которая, даже когда идет дождь, нам все равно приятно. Особенно те, кто приехал, может быть, с северных территорий нашего необъятного региона. Не буду называть города, но вот уже я вижу, как люди радуются и улыбаются. Поэтому все было очень здорово. И надеемся, что мы в Узбекистане будем еще не раз собираться, встречаться, потому что Узбекистан сегодня заявляет свои амбиции на то, чтобы быть передовой страной в области информационных технологий. А это означает, что мы будем собираться, смотреть, учиться и вместе строить информационное общество в наших регионах. Спасибо.
Спасибо большое, Нуридин Срединович. Тогда уже позвольте от имени Международного союза электросвязи тоже сказать пару слов. Хотелось бы, конечно, в первую очередь поблагодарить принимающую сторону, администрацию связи Узбекистана. Я думаю, все участники были впечатлены тем гостеприимством, которое мы здесь почувствовали. Мне повезло уже далеко не первый раз сюда приезжать, и я все равно каждый раз умудряюсь удивляться этому. То есть большое вам спасибо за прекрасную организацию, за поддержку, за заботу, за трансфер, то, что вот вы даже сами звонили, отлавливали людей. То есть мы это все очень ценим, уважаем. Также большое спасибо технической команде, кто оказывал поддержку. Мы ставили вам такие, может быть, не всегда своевременные и нечеткие задачи, но вы их все прекрасно решили, да, с организацией трансляции, видеоконференц-связи, все, что мы просили. Большое спасибо за техническую поддержку, большое спасибо переводчикам, всем, кто вовлечен в этот довольно такой сложный, трудоемкий процесс. Большое спасибо, хотелось бы сказать, нашим экспертам, Мартину и Иниго, которые основную часть контента этого семинара закрыли. Мы очень благодарны, что вы приняли участие. Думаю, вы видите, насколько людям интересно задавать вам вопросы, как много к вам подходит в перерывах. И большое спасибо. Большое спасибо всем, кто делал презентации, выступал. Все страновые презентации были очень интересны. И вот даже тот факт, что просят перевести слайды на английский язык, подтверждает, что не просто дежурные слова, действительно люди хотят информацию использовать в своей работе. И, конечно, огромное спасибо всем участникам, всем, кто приехал на семинар. Могу сказать, что из моей практики это, наверное, такой семинар, на котором участники наиболее вовлеченные оставались. Да? То есть все 3 дня все задавали вопросы, общались и постоянно были включены в процесс. Это меня очень лично впечатляет. Большое спасибо. Мы понимаем, что вы оторвались от своей работы практически на неделю. Да? Кто-то очень сложные рейсы, чтобы сюда прилететь, да, с пересадками и этими суточными. Мы это все ценим, очень вам благодарны и надеемся, что вы действительно получили от этого семинара то, что вы ожидали, и эта информация поможет вам использована в работе. And now I will hand to my colleague Karim from the ITU Arab office to say also a few words in the conclusion.
Thank you very much, Farid. I want to obviously start by joining the previous speakers in thanking the host for the excellent organization of the event. And I want, through the Uzbekistan administration, to specifically thank Ms. Umaida. I don't know if she's in the room or not, but she has done an excellent job in facilitating all our stays and, facilitating this whole event. So if you can please convey all of our gratitude to her through you, and to thank every single person in the team that worked to make this event a success, including, of course, the interpreters and the IT personnel in the back of the room. I want to also thank, obviously, all the participants who, some participants came from a very long distance to participate in this event, whose contributions were very valuable. Without all your contributions, this event would not have been a success. The real success of this event is sharing all the experiences between the different countries and both regions. And I think a very important byproduct that we have seen throughout the past days is learning about the cross cultures of different regions. Particularly in this case, the Arab region came to the CIS region and learned about the rich culture of the CIS region represented by the Uzbek culture. So I think next year, hopefully, it will be the other way around. Our friends from the CIS region will be coming to the Arab region, probably around the same time in 2020, I mean, and hopefully you'll see the Arab culture next year, and we'll build, obviously, on the momentum done in this workshop, and build on the positive vibes and that we've seen in this workshop, and hopefully throughout the year we can see the positive incomes, positive outputs, coming from the administrations participating in this workshop, in the submissions of their surveys and all the other indicator requirements throughout the year. So I think with that, we will see you next year, and we hope that everyone has a safe flight back home. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we conclude, then there's some information regarding the time and set. Now we have lunch, I believe, we can go right now, or, yeah? Or at 1?
At 1.
Okay, we can go for lunch at 1 p.m. Then at 2 p.m. there will be an RCC meeting in this room, so those who participate, please join. Then at 3 p.m., I believe, around 3 p.m. there will be a city tour, which will last for around 3 hours, if I'm right. And then at 6:30, again, we convene here in the lobby for the dinner offered by the ministry. So that's it, and have some rest and enjoy the city tour. Thank you, everyone, and that's it.